And welcome back, Dean Obeidallah Show. Right now, our friend Elie Mystal is back. New York Times bestselling author, the nation's justice correspondent, the legal editor of the More Perfect podcast on Supreme Court for Radio Lab. And he's got a brand new book, folks. You got to get called Bad Law, 10 Popular Laws That Are Ruining America. Elie, thank you for being here. Congratulations on your new book. I look forward to chatting with you about that, but we'll start with a few other issues. But nice to see you, my friend.
Hi, Dean. How's fascism treating you today?
You know, it really is just remarkable. Like, it's really kind of nice. I haven't been deported yet, but they're going to get, once they run out of students and green card holders who are pro-Palestinian, they'll get to me.
Yeah,
So,
no, having legal documentation doesn't really matter very
mm-mm.
much anymore, and I am kind of constantly looking over my shoulder now for when the government comes to get me. I mean, honestly, when I was thinking about taking a trip to London this summer, and now to the extent that I'm thinking about still doing that, I'm like, well, I'm gonna have to buy a burner phone at least. Like it's a scary time.
Is that for when Mike Waltz brings you into a single chat? So you could, because you have a
And
burner,
just to
you
be
can
clear, if
burn.
I get invited on one of those, I ain't telling nobody. I'm staying and I'm taking notes.
Let me just ask you one quick thing here. Because Colby Hall at Mediaite, who I have a lot of respect for, he's a media guy. He's not a BS guy. He's not over the top in politics. In fact, he's criticized me for being over the top at times. He wrote an article yesterday that the reason, he goes, the obvious reason from his point of view as a media person, that Mike Walls at Jeffrey Goldberg's phone number is that as a former elected official before, and now is where he is, they talk to people in the media. They leak stuff all the time. They have relationships and they don't want people to know about it. And there's nothing illegal if it's not confidential. You're doing things. And that's probably why his number was in the phone there. And I'm like, that's kind of interesting. That was a very kind of calm, kind of nice explanation of what possibly happened.
Do people not think or not realize that many in the mainstream media are direct access journalists to this fascist administration? Are people really surprised? Do they think that this kind of the constant bullcrap coming at us from the New York Times and the Washington Post and the Atlanta, like, that just happens by accident? No, they're getting direct talking points from the principals and are repurposing them as if they're real reporting. So no, I'm not at all surprised that a guy like Goldberg is on speed dial with the fascist administration. So many in the mainstream media are.
Yeah, and that's kind of an interesting twist to it. Look, when we talked about the fascist regime here, when you take a step back, it's very hard for me mentally to not comprehend, but to believe this is real. Because what is happening is something out of the History Channel. It's just box after box, inundation after inundation of from executive orders to what we saw with Pete Hegseth. It doesn't even matter. Like that stuff doesn't matter at all unless Trump really feels like it's personal. To what we're seeing with the students. I mean, you wrote about Mahmoud Khalil, and we've had numerous others, and a postdoctorate person down in DC, and now the Turkish student, Ramizia Ozturk, who the only thing they say she ever did, well, DHS says she celebrated Hamas or something, which if you did that, that would be despicable. That shouldn't be a reason to deport someone, but that doesn't matter. They're saying what their friends are saying is that the only thing they can find is that she co-wrote an article last year urging the Tufts University to divest from companies directly tied to Israel. And I'm like, and that's it.
And the Ozturk situation, I don't know if your listeners have seen the video of her
No.
being kidnapped and abducted on the streets by Trump's secret police. I keep telling people, I don't know what they expected fascism to feel like, but this is what it feels like. This is
Right.
this is what fascism is, right? Like I feel like people keep waiting for like the New York Times to announce fascism is here today. Like that's never how it felt. That's never how it was going to happen. It's going to happen. It was always going to happen exactly like it is happening right now. We live in a fascist dictatorship right now. And whatever you're
Yeah.
doing right now to either oppose the regime or to be complicit with the regime is what you would have been doing in Joseph Stalin's Russia or Adolf Hitler's Germany or Pinochet's Chile. Like that's what you would be doing because that's what's happening right now.
Did you see the video of Christy Nome, by the way?
Yeah, the prisoner snuff film in El Salvador. Like I don't even know what to do with that information. Like it is so disgusting. But this is who people voted for. This is what people wanted, and that's why we are in our current situation. It is. The words fail me
I
to
know.
describe how disgusting I believe this all is, but in fact, we are in a failed state, and we have to use all of the measures of resistances that we have learned from failed states before. And too often, we see people acting like Vichy France. We see people trying to go along to get along. We see people pretending like it was normal. I got into a debate with a person who was like, "Oh, it's not like Germany. Look how many of us are still free." And I'm like, "Yo, lots of the Germans were still free. We had a name for the people who were still free. We called them Nazis." Right?
Also,
Like,
2 months in is
of
different.
course, many of us are going to be still free. If it has to always be a small, discrete group that you can take away rights without due process, and that's exactly what they're doing. What did you think it was going to happen?
The,
It has been
yep.
my question for the past few weeks.
The Christy Nome video just struck me as something from the Holocaust, and I don't know why. Maybe because the fact that they were all shaved head and some look very thin. They didn't look emancipated yet, the prisoners, but there was something about the gleefulness of the cruelty
And
that
we
she
know
stood
that
in front
torture
of.
happens in that prison.
Of course it does.
We know that torture happens in
And
that prison.
her
And
gleefulness is what I think conjured up the Holocaust to me. I'm like, this is what. There's a lot of things we're seeing now that I didn't think we would see on our watch as human beings. Like what I'm not going to get into Gaza now, but I'm just saying, God, the images from Gaza sound like something from World War One. You'd be like,
right,
"Wow, my God, how did humanity allow that to happen?" And you're like, "Oh, I see now." And then what we're seeing in El Salvador, and what we're seeing a young a student leaving, walking in the streets from by Tufts University, just abducted with people with masks. And you're like, "Oh, that's how it happens," and she's
look
not
what
alone.
look what happened in Yemen. I mean, like, I know Signalgate, and we're all supposed to talk about look how incompetent the boobs are, talking about it. We bombed an entire apartment complex to kill one guy, to kill one guy at his girlfriend's house. And the DUI hires from the Trump administration are high-fiving themselves on Signal. And I know we're all supposed to talk about the process and oh my God and the state secrets, and I'm not saying that that's unimportant,
I understand.
but the more important thing is that we bombed an entire apartment complex to kill one person, and apparently we're all cool with that aspect of the story, right? So it's the I think is what Trump represents is a dehumanization, a disregard for human life and basic human rights that has been building in this country for quite some time. And Trump is now just capitalizing on a lack of respect for humanity that is already endemic to our crumbling nation.
Very well put. I'm chatting with Elie Mystal. Yeah, I was talking to Tom Hartman today, and we were talking about how sort of what you're saying. Like some people, you don't know you're the frog in the boiling water until someone else looks on the outside. Anyone else from other nations looking at what's going on, they're startled by this. They are shocked by what's happening in the United States of America. You know, when European allies say we can't rely on America, it's not just about NATO. It's much deeper. It's about a partner in fighting for human rights, or at least on the face fighting for human rights, even though we violate shit and we've done stuff and we support Netanyahu and doing horrible things and we've done things ourselves, right? There was something about who the United States is supposed to be. Meanwhile, we have JD Vance going to Greenland like it's a real estate tour about property you're going to buy, but against the will of the people there. You have the Prime Minister of Canada. He might win on running against America. He's closed a gap of 20 points. This is where we are right now. We are the bad guy.
We're the bad guys.
Yep.
We are the bad guys. If there's a World War III, we're the bad guys, and Germany will be the good guys this time. That'll be the twist, right? No, we're the bad guys, and this is happening in our name. And all I would say to people, all I've been trying to say to people is put it like this. What I'm trying, maybe I'll personalize it.
Sure.
What I try to do is make sure that my children know and my grandchildren know that not everybody who was living here at this time supported this fascist regime. That some of us tried, that some of us resisted, that some of us spoke out, even at risk to ourselves, that some of us tried to fight it because history is going to look back on all of us alive right now poorly. History is going to look back on us poorly and ask what we did. And I'm trying to at least leave a personal record of what I did and how I tried and what I thought. Because I'm gonna want my when my kids do the ancestry.com or whatever that is in the future, I want them to know that they had an ancestor who objected at the very least.
Do you think the 2026 election ends up being a full and fair election?
No, and no, not at all. And look at what Trump's executive order was this week, right?
Hmm.
His mandate that real ID, passports, proof of citizenship is required for voting. Now, Trump flatly doesn't have the constitutional power to do this. As I have complained about on your air before, we do not have one federal election system. We have 50 federal election systems, and each state has its own independent constitutional authority to determine who can vote, who has to be registered, and all that kind of nonsense. Trump can't mandate the states to do anything. However, Trump and his MAGA junta control Congress. And at least when it comes to presidential elections, Congress is in charge of certifying the votes, right? And so if Trump orders his sycophants in Congress to simply not certify the votes from blue states, because they refuse to follow his draconian ID requirements. Well, folks, that's how you get Trump stealing. And I do believe it's going to be Trump in 2029, running in 2028, not Vance or whatever. If he's alive and healthy, I believe it's going to be a third Trump term. That's how you get one of these fake elections that we see so often in dictatorships where they say, oh, we had an election. I just happened to win with 98% of the vote because I'm so awesome.
Right.
Like that's the kind of election that we're going towards, one that is perfunctory, not fair.
Yeah, I mean, it was very interesting when I read about in Turkey how Erdogan had his leading opponent, even though the election's not for years away, but the leading opponent, the mayor of Istanbul, arrested. And there
Yeah, when
were
I saw that, Dean, I was like, they arrested the mayor of Istanbul. That's shocking to me because I saw Eric Adams at a event like 2 nights ago, and I was like, how are you still free? But apparently I got my wires crossed on that.
that's a different thing. So, but this is, but if Trump viewed Adams as a threat, then the
Who
case is
knows?
going forward, right? So there's no deal there. But they use a term, it went from a competitive autocracy to an absolute autocracy in what Erdogan's doing. So right now we are somewhere between what we were before and a competitive autocracy, which is really, if you go to Hungary, that's what they've done. They've been able to control the judiciary, the media. You have local elections where the other party really can win. They'll let you win those because they know you'll never win nationally. And those are the crumbs. So we'll have like, well, we're a democracy. We have democratic governors. You can still have that. They don't care about that as much as nationally controlling legislation. And wait till Elie they come to. I mean, Trump's already threatening Maine. If you don't apologize, you don't get federal funding. I told people forever last year, what they're going to do on every issue they want to impose on blue states, say, we're going to dry up your funding if you don't do ban abortion, if you don't get rid of transgender people, whatever it is. They're going to do all of that. That's coming. I don't care what the courts are going to say because they don't care what the courts are going to say.
Yep, and I've written about this in the Nation that the courts are powerless to stop Trump on issues where he physically controls the issue, right? So when it comes to physically abducting immigrants and putting them on planes and sending them away, courts can't stop him because the courts don't have an army. When it comes to cutting off funding, courts can't stop him because courts don't have an army. And I think that we're going to see more and more of that, no matter what the courts do. And to be clear, I don't think the courts are actually going to try to stop him. I mean, the lower courts are. I don't think the Supreme Court is going to try to
Right.
stop him. I've written in the Nation that John Roberts' entire idea here is to avoid a direct confrontation with Trump on the law because he knows he will lose that direct confrontation and doesn't want to be exposed as being feckless, right? So he's going to try to give the baby its bottle and give Trump what he wants on many of these issues. And so we're just going to see more and more and more of that. A lesson until not just the states but the people themselves rise up. That's the only way autocracies have ever been defeated. Either we have a foreign invasion, which doesn't look likely given the lethality of the American military,
Right.
or the people living here themselves have to rise up against this administration, and take the power back from them. And we're nowhere close to that.
Very true. How do you think? I mean, look, it's all speculative, I know, but in your heart, how do you think this regime ends?
Well, autocracies either don't last very long or last forever, right? Right? You're either looking at like a 5-10 year like autocratic blip, or you're talking about 1,000 year Reich. And so I'm still hoping that we're closer to a 5 to 10 year autocratic blip where, and the reason why autocracies generally don't last very long is because they're horrible. It's because they're terrible. It's because they cut off services for the people. It's because they cause cruelty and unhappiness. The randomness of autocracy, living on the whims of a dictator, is not fun, especially not fun for people who have the memory of something else, something better, something where they were free. So I'm hoping it doesn't last very long. But that event horizon probably, I mean, I don't think the event horizon is 2026, right? And I don't really think the event horizon is 2029. I think the event horizon is further than that. People have to go. I don't see the fever breaking anytime soon, but I do think eventually the fever breaks just because the administration, and we see it with this is the part of the Signal app story that I do get. Um, they're incompetent boobs. They're incompetent boobs. We would be in a much worse situation if these people actually knew what they were doing. They know how to get power, they know how to keep power, they know how to jail people, they know how to intimidate people, but they don't actually know how to run a country. And
And
if you look at like the poll numbers of Elon Musk, like eventually people will realize that their actual services are being taken away, not just their rights. And when the money dries up, not just their free speech rights, I do think people will have a stronger reaction than they're having now.
do you think at some point the Trump regime tries to punish Jeffrey Goldberg?
I mean, I think that's one of the reasons why Jeffrey Goldberg got out of the chat, because I think he knew that if he stayed, he would be increasingly in danger of being prosecuted or have them come after him in some way when he finally did release the information. So I think Jeff Goldberg thinks that they might come after him. Um, I think, look, the only way you make Goldberg more powerful right now is to make him a martyr and make him a political prisoner. So I don't think so. But more to the point, what they're definitely not going to do is go after the people who perjured themselves in front of Congress and released national security secrets like that. Those people got
No.
away with it.
Well, we know that, and that's through time. That's not just now. We've had that happen in the past. The To me, Goldberg, making him a martyr is not. It's not really a martyr. He doesn't have an inherent big following. Like putting Barack Obama in prison would make him more powerful because then he has the power to call people to maybe do something. But I'm chatting with Elie Mystal. So let's talk about your book here. And it's called Bad Law: Top 10 Popular Laws That Are Ruining America. And each chapter of the book has an analysis of a law that you think is ruining America. And I know everyone's asking the same question to start off with because I've read some of the interviews. Why these 10? So I got to ask it because everyone's thinking the same way. Were these 10 just the worst? Did you grow up going, these 10 law? If I ever write a book, it's these 10. Or did they just make sense, sort of like placeholders for different bigger things you were trying to talk about?
Yeah, so I've been saying, Dean, that I kind of wrote the book as my attempt to start writing Project 2029,
Ah,
right?
nice. Right.
When Republicans take power, they come in with a plan to smash, right? They come in not to build anything. They come in trying to take down the previous regime's laws. When Democrats come in, we come in, even when we win, we come in the fetal position. We come in trying to protect stuff, trying to restore institutions. We don't come in with the goal of smashing the bad things that the previous people did. So
Right.
instead of writing, because I could have easily written 10 laws we need or, something like that, right? But I didn't want to go in that direction because, like, before we get to the things that we need to get rid of the things that we don't need. We need to get rid of these laws, some of these laws that have for long imposed bigotry and sexism on our country, and we need to start with the smashing, and then we can get to the rebuilding, right? So, in terms of the scoping mechanism for these laws, look, Dean, I mean, like there are lots of laws. I haven't read them all, right? There,
Right. So
I don't got
lots.
that kind of time.
Right.
So the scoping mechanism that I used was what were the laws that we can just get rid of, right? There are many laws that need to be reformed or updated or brought into the modern age, and that's good, important work. But what are the ones that we could just X out of the code today and have our society be better tomorrow, right? So like one of the ways that I've explained this is like look at something like the Anti-Drug Abuse Act, right? Like I think that's terrible. I think it's one of the worst laws that was ever passed. It's provably racist and discriminatory, as well as being ineffective at stopping any kind of drug use epidemic. But I'm not going to say that we should have no drug laws, right? I don't work for the Sackler family. I'm not trying to get people hooked on opioids.
Right.
We
Right.
should have some drug laws. So the Anti-Drug Abuse Act is a example of a law that needs to be reformed, and so it didn't make my book. The ones that are in my book are the ones that can just be repealed, not replaced, just repealed, just smashed, and things can get better.
And do you have any hope that even if Democrats get control of Congress and the House and the Senate and the White House, that they would take some of these on? I mean, do you envision yourself testifying under oath before a
I,
congressional hearing about why these got to go?
I mean, look, writing a book is always an act of hope, right?
Sure.
On so many levels. And so, yeah, I do. Again, from a Project 2029 standpoint, you got to remember the Republicans started writing Project 2025 in 2021. And it comes off the backs of Project 2020, which is what they wrote leading up to that election, right? Republicans put plans in place and tried to get people excited and motivated about their plans, even when their plans have no chance of being passed in the moment. And that's what I'm doing here. I understand that right now, obviously,
Right.
we can't repeal some of these laws. And I understand that generally the Democratic Party, the establishment of the Democratic Party, is not on my side when it comes to repealing some of those laws. But part of the reason why you write the book is like maybe vote for the candidates that agree. Like if you agree, maybe ask your candidate in the primary, do you agree that we should have automatic universal registration, mandatory voter registration? Ask them. See what they say. And if you agree that we should, maybe vote for the person who agrees with you, as opposed to voting for the establishment stooge who is just going to say, well, not so fast, my friend. Like instead of voting for that guy, vote for candidates that actually share your values and agree with your policy positions. And you write the book to try to get people focused in on that.
And I'm talking with Elie Mystal about his brand new book. Just came out this week. Bad Law: 10 Popular Laws That Are Ruining America. The laws touch on things that, in your view, are bigoted, that cause massive social and political harm. If they're of the 10, which one? Talk about one for listeners. Like which one, like whatever, gets your craw, or you're like, this really exemplifies everything I'm about here and changing this.
Yeah, so it's the first chapter of my book, and I thought it was the right chapter. It's about voting rights, and my
Mhm.
argument is that we should have voter eligibility requirements because everybody generally agrees that there must be some eligibility requirements. Like age is an eligibility requirement, right?
Right.
We might disagree 18, 16, what the age cutoff should be, but ain't none of us going to say eight, right? None of us are going to say four. So like that. But once you're eligible, once you're deemed eligible, you should be automatically registered to vote. You shouldn't have to go through the second step of pre-registration. If you're eligible, you should get to vote. And that's
Sure.
not just me saying it. That is most advanced democracies on earth saying it. All the other countries either have mandatory registration, automatic registration, or same day registration. We're one of the only ones that has this weeks or sometimes months long pre-registration process, right? So that's the first chapter of my book because you're talking about government, you have to start with voting rights, and I thought that that was the one that people would kind of get in terms of what I was all about. But that was really confirmed when libs of TikTok and Charlie Kirk and Breitbart all came after me for saying that we should have automatic or mandatory registration. That really pissed them off. And it's one of those things where, like, if they're screaming at you, you know what you're saying is right.
Right. And why would they be upset? There are states that have automatic registration based like on DMV. If you're having a driver's license, New Jersey and some of the others, what could be
North
their
Dakota. North Dakota has no voter registration requirements. You're eligible to vote in North Dakota. You get to vote in North Dakota. Do we have huge stories about election fraud coming out of North Dakota? Is North Dakota even a blue state? With North Dakota has the registration model that I am talking about, is that even a blue state? So you can't say that mandatory registration is partisan. What you can say is that it is democratic.
right?
And that is what the Republicans don't want to deal with. They don't want democracy.
It's kind of remarkable because I was just reading Annie Applebaum's book about autocracy. And it goes through how the forces on the right, which are like ours now in America, truly don't like democracy. They don't like people voting. All the things that we think about that you would take for granted in a democratic republic, they, like the autocrats around there, oppose it. And again, the book is Bad Law, 10 Popular Laws That Are Ruining America. Sell your Tesla, buy like 100 copies of this book, or hundreds. I bought it on Amazon, even though I could have got a free one just to be supportive of my friend Elie. And the last minute here,
Thank you.
so again, so check out the book. Very last thing, I want to touch on this because we didn't touch on the show, but just 1 minute here. Your article, it's about making segregation great again, but some people had called in about the certification in government contracts no longer explicitly prohibiting the idea of having segregation going on in restaurants, waiting rooms, drinking fountains, all that kind of stuff. We'll share a little bit here in our last minute.
Yeah, so look, segregation is not that long ago. I shared a story on the Nation about how when I
Mhm.
went to a family reunion in Mississippi, my mother ordered me to drink from a water fountain, and I was like, "I'm not thirsty," and she was like, "Drink," and I was like, "All right, damn it." And as you lean down, you can see that the whites only sign on this water fountain had just been lightly scratched out. Like it hadn't
Wow.
even faded. And you kind of realize that what you're doing is that I'm drinking, I was 8 or 9. I'm drinking from a water fountain that my mother wasn't allowed to drink from when she was growing up in Mississippi. So segregation is not all that far away. And with people like Elon Musk and Donald Trump, they're trying to make it great again. The rule change regards the federal rules for giving contracts to people, right? And previously, the rules have said you can't give a government contract to a segregated business. They took that rule out. Does that mean that every business can segregate now? No, there are still relevant civil rights laws that prohibit segregation in the workforce. But my question is this: who's going to check you, boo? Who's enforcing the Civil
Yep.
Rights Act right now? Who's in charge of preventing businesses from running segregated shops? Oh, it's the Trump Department of Justice. Do you think Pam Bondi is bringing any segregation suits against, oh, I don't know, Tesla? Indeed, there was a massive DOJ investigation into the allegations of segregationist policies at Tesla that Donald Trump closed down within his first month of office. And then 5 days after he closed that investigation down, guess what? This rule change allowing him to give contracts to segregated workplaces. And it just so happens that Elon Musk has a bunch of contracts from the federal government. I can't say that Elon Musk is running a segregated shop because they closed the investigation into whether or not he was. But
Yep.
it certainly doesn't look nice, does it? And
No,
that's and that's what that was the point of the rule change.
Elie, I appreciate it. And again, his article, you can check that out. Nation, Trump wants to make segregation great again. But more importantly, pick up Elie's book, Bad Law, 10 Popular Laws That Are Ruining America. His last book was a New York Times bestseller. I hope this one is as well. Thank you so much for being on, my friend. I look forward to chatting with you. Hopefully, you have a little bit more time after the rollout to come back on a little bit more often. I always enjoy chatting with you.
Oh, absolutely. You know you're going to see me again for Supreme Court decision season because that's going to
Oh,
be
yeah. Yeah, that's
off
all
the
right.
chain.
All right, brother. Thanks a lot. Good luck with
Thanks a
the
lot,
book
Dean.
selling. Take care, my friend.